Hey guys, trust that things are going okay. We're doing good on this end. I really can't complain. We got a lot to be thankful for, even though I can't do the things necessarily that I want to do. But I find that being able to share this time with you is its own kind of special pleasure. I'm really encouraged that some of you are finding benefit from this, and so I'm looking forward to continue to do this. Maybe even after we get through this season, to maybe not do it every day like I've been trying to do during this time, but to be able to do it often enough so that we can kind of have a conversation. It's really kind of nice that we can have this kind of interface together on a regular basis. But what I wanted to share with you today is one of my favorite Psalms, Psalm 46. And this is a psalm written by Korah. He was not, we often think that David is being the psalmist, and he was that, but not all the psalms were written by David. Korah, or the sons of Korah as they're referred to, are basically, they were priests who led worship in the temple, and they often wrote psalms as basically creating a songbook for the worship in the temple. But I love this passage. He begins in verse 1 by saying to us that God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. In other words, the word trouble there, you could probably translate it as tight spaces, tight places. In other words, when life begins to squeeze in on you or to begin to chase after you and pressure you, and panic and fear begins to set in, he says, we have a refuge, that we have a place that we can go and escape that trouble. And we have a place, he says, where we can find strength, the energy to overcome, because Christ's promise isn't just to give us enough to get by. He says, if you will allow me, I will give you the strength to overcome. And then he goes on to talk about the kind of context where we can need God's refuge or strength. He says, first of all, therefore we will not fear though the earth change, and though the mountains slip into the heart of the sea, though the waters roar and foam and the mountains quake at its swelling. And then he says, Selah. It's interesting because the very first thing he talks about is when there are catastrophic things happen in our life, we have a place that we can go to find comfort and safety to deal with that catastrophe. That we're not simply left to the tossing of the waves of life, but we have a choice. We can focus upon the Lord and find not just his theoretical presence, but we can find that powerful grace and goodness that can sustain us and strengthen us through that time. And then he goes on, he says, secondly, there is a river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy dwelling places of the Most High. God is in the midst of her, and she will not be moved. God will help her when morning dawns. The nations made an uproar, the kingdoms tottered. He raised his voice, the earth melted. The Lord of hosts is with us, and the God of Jacob is our stronghold. Here again, he's called God a refuge. He's called him a strength, and now he describes God as being a stronghold, but not just a stronghold over there. He is a stronghold with us. Keep in mind that the writer, when he's writing this, is in the city of Jerusalem, and he's recognizing this encircling problems and threats from all around him. And he says that my God is a river who is there to not only sustain me, but also provide me a place to dwell. And I am right in the midst of that place. So that as you go through these moments, God says, I am there with you. And so he's talking about times of uncertainty. So first he says, in times of catastrophe, I'm going to be there to protect you. But now he says, even in times of uncertainty where I don't know what the future is going to bring. I mean, that's different from going through a catastrophe. When I go through a catastrophe, I know I'm going through a catastrophe. You don't have to ask me what's wrong. I can tell you. But there's times of uncertainty where, much like we're in right now, I don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. And this for me has been the personal challenge more than anything else because, I'm a kind of guy that likes to kind of make plans for the future, at least a little ways down the road. And things change so rapidly. I mean, even what the government tells us is and isn't seems to alter back and forth. I don't know whether I should wear a face mask or not wear a face mask. It's kind of a crazy time. And in that uncertainty, he says, you have to understand that I am with you. I'm right there in the midst of your situation, walking through it with you. And then thirdly, he says, come, behold the works of the Lord who has wrought desolations in the earth. He makes wars to cease to the end of the earth. He breaks the bow and cuts the spear in two, and he burns the chariots with fire. It's interesting because here he comes into a third context. First, we started with catastrophe. And then he said, when you're in uncertainty. And last of all, he's talking about what do you do when you're in conflict? I don't know what your experience has been through this time, stay-at-home time, but I can tell you what my wife and I's are. We get on each other's nerves after a while. I mean, we've had to really learn how to grow in this one area of our life that we get irritable and we get testy. We yearn to have other people in our life to talk to. We miss our friends and getting together for dinners and all those kinds of things. Sometimes we just miss being able to talk to other people at length and have a conversation. What do? We end up having conflicts with each other. Some of you, I suspect, are going through serious conflicts. In fact, that's why tonight I'm going to be starting a new series. Instead of our Wednesday night patriarch study, I'm going to be talking about marriage and relationships. And again, it's going to be similar to this. I want to start off by having just a conversation with you and to share some things that God has taught my wife and I over the years. But that's coming up tonight, Wednesday night. So go by the church, get your free pizza, and then tune me in. We'll talk about this more in depth. I'm going to start right there because I still have a lot more to say and I don't want to take a whole lot more time. But I want to continue tomorrow by covering some more about this particular psalm. God bless you and go in His grace.